He's a Boston guy, so we're East Coast. Most of Barstool's all East Coast.
Sorry.
All good. We've talked about trying to get a West Coast like presence out there. We once tried with a couple dudes who were from Indianapolis and from Indiana, some shit out there, and then tried to make it as like comics, and they were supposed to be like the West Coast Barstool representation. It just didn't work. At that point, Barstool didn't translate to LA yet. I don't know if it could now, but back then it definitely didn't.
I think so now, especially because Portnoy got all the TikTok boys out there. I just don't think it would be a different Barstool out in, if you were in Boston or something like that out here,
Dude,
what? Very different headquarters.
What do you think about, like, so the reason I wanted you on, I texted you recently because I was listening to you on Ryan Sickler's pod, and there was a couple moments talking about, like, you coming up as a comic and also just, like, your headspace when it comes to this whole game. So I'll get into that in a little bit, but you were talking about like earning your stripes and like getting your chops in the comedy world, and then obviously you made it big on the internet as far as social media, videos, sketches and skits and stuff. But then along comes TikTok, where it's just like, yeah, I got six pack and I fucking wiggle my dick a little bit, and these guys fucking blow up. That would probably scare the shit out of me, drive me crazy. I'd be half jealous, half angry, trying to keep up. Is it good motivation? Is it toxic motivation? Like, what is that how do you view that whole explosion?
Yeah, it's motivation from like every different angle, because for me, I think like a lot more like a businessman. I go, okay, what's the longevity of a guy who's got a six pack, who's 18, who's starting to party a lot, all right? He's going to start drinking. He's going to get that beer gut. And what keeps me at peace is seeing all the popular Vine stars who had it back then just for being hot. You see them now, and they look like they got like just salt infections. They're just big, bloated dudes, and they're like, it gives me peace of mind knowing like, hey, six packs aren't forever unless you work at it and train for it. But comedy and having personality, that's monetary. You can. Right. That's why stand-up comedians literally do stand-up until they're dead, because they don't change internally. They might look like shit. They definitely look like shit. Yep. We've all seen our favorite comedians on a headshot, and then you see them live, and you go, that's not the same person. Yep. So I think just letting it not get to you is the best thing. But there is a lot of that where you go, I have 10 million views for being hot, and
Bro. I've gone on a pretty extensive TikTok rant before where like if TikTokers ever tried to, and it's not even anti-TikTok, it's more just welcoming them to reality, where it's like, look, one of your best friends in the next 5 years is going to wrap his car around a tree and die. Just like accept that in your head. Like that's your life trajectory. Just fucking understand it.
It's these kids don't go to college, so they're using, because I was in a fraternity, so I got out 4 years of just aggressive drinking, hating my body, and then graduating, but okay, that was fun, now what? But these kids are going through the no college phase. They also have money now.
Tons of money.
So imagine.
Did you see that fucking thing?
What?
That story? That story that just like, it was like yesterday or 2 days ago. It was like a bunch of TikTokers. Okay, this is an article from Daily Dot. It says, TikTokers are claiming that a glitch involving Chase Bank is causing their accounts to appear as if they are 50 billion in debt. Now, obviously, they don't have, I think they mean as a collective, like a bunch of TikTok users. But like, how many TikTok users it take to make up $50 billion?
The numbers are astronomical, man.
Anything
that
after
age,
$1 million, I don't even know.
Could you imagine at that age, like, having access to that amount of money and people knowing you and the vultures that come around? You're fucked.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I got all my alcoholism and my regrets and all that in college out of me. Now these guys have an audience. They got millions of eyes watching their every move, and they're like, I'm going to get absolutely shit cannon hammered and then wrap my G-Wagon, like you were saying, just on the 101 flying. So it's like, it's good to get that shit out of you, but they're all in like a frat/reality show while still not having to have a fake ID to get alcohol. I mean, they're like 19. So it's like,
And
I started drinking at like 13.
All with two parents who are like, yo, let me fucking get in the video and I'll be your manager, and like you got to put your sister on and you got to bring the family with you, and yeah, you're gonna have like one kid who ODs, one kid who crashes the car, one kid who suffers from depression, one kid who falls, gets addicted. Like it's just the most
best case scenario for TikTokers is Bieber, and even Bieber at this stage in his life, I think he would say at least 1/3 of his life was spent in a deep, dark depression.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Bieber's the best case scenario.
The trajectory
he spent 10
is
years being a maniac.
Yeah, the trajectory is a lot of drugs, you party, then you go off the grid, you get long hair, you find yourself in a Joshua tree in the forest, you do a lot of psychedelics, you come back, I'm a man of God now. Once you hit God level, once you start preaching God, that's when you know you've seen it all.
Yeah,
you've
you
done
got nothing
Hollywood.
left. Yep.
You've done it all. That's like, it's either that or Dancing with the Stars of level, like, that's peak Hollywood right there.
It's so true that you mentioned that you went to college. There's such a difference, I think, when you all do that collective life together, but then you kind of realize, okay, we can't do this forever. And some people hang on longer than others. And then it's not like you stop partying in your 20s. Of course you have fun, but there is some acknowledge, or at least I should say the successful people. Like, again, I listened to you on that podcast where you had a moment where you were like, all right, now I got to do some shit for like the long haul. Now I got to do something for my career. And if you don't have to work for a career, or especially in the world of comedy where there's so much failure before success, if you're just gifted 100 million followers because you dance or because of whatever, there's no way you can have the right, mentality of what it takes, because there's never been any work for it. There's never been any hustle or grind.
Yeah, it's also like, where do you go from there? Because these kids are going from like living at home with their parents to living in a, like $18 million mansion. It like, you're mentally gonna be like, oh, I'm just gonna go to a studio apartment after this.
Right.
Like what I love about stand-up and the trajectory that I've done is like, I lived in a fucking pool house when I first moved here I peed outside every morning. It was great. I was like, I love this. I'm on the grind, baby. Gary Vee, suck me off. I was fucking fired up. But now it's like you get to work towards something, but these kids are doing, it's like backwards. It's like you win the lottery. Now what do you have? What do you do after? How are you going to trump what you already have?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
But also, like, as much as we're saying this, like, I think a large amount of them will go on to be successful. I make the jokes and shit like that, but I do think like, if you look at the Vine guys, right, almost everyone in Vine, or at least the top stars, right, there's plenty of people who just fell by the wayside, but the top stars are still very successful, right? I couldn't name them all for you, but like King Bach, he's one, right? He does his shit. Logan, would you say Logan Paul was a Vine guy?
Yeah, that's true. And the people that do it, they figure it out quick. They figure out the business side of things. But there is a lot of just like, I drank my ass off for 3 years. Oh fuck!
Now what?
Why is the money stopping to come in? Yeah.
I loved
if you can be business savvy, you're good.
The story you told about Feits, he was coming up in the comedy world, and when they say like you need to bring people to your show, and he's in a frat, so he just brings like, usually a bringer show, you're like lucky if you bring like 4 or 5 friends along, right? He brought like his whole fucking frat with him. So it's like a Wednesday night, and when Trevor goes up on stage, the joint is fucking packed with rowdy dudes who are like 2 drink minimum. Yeah, like how about fucking 22 drinks? Let's go. And the comedy club's like, what the fuck is this? And it's like, look, see, man, sometimes being a dumb fucking drunk frat boy in the right areas, it can pay off, man. That must have been unbelievable to be like, yeah, this is what I do, man. I move crowds. I bring them with me.
It was awesome. I mean, I had my own like cheerleaders, and like for comedy clubs, like you're saying, they're not expecting much because they just see you as a math equation. I'm like, can you give me 5 minutes of time on a Wednesday, an off night, a shit night? I'll bring 20 plus people. They're like, okay, 20 people, each person's gonna spend at least $45. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, get up there.
Yeah.
And I mean, dude, they don't even. And plus, a majority of the opening acts, if you're at a comedy show, you don't even remember their name, let alone like a few of their jokes. So as a normal audience member, they're like, yeah, this is some new kid probably trying to make it work. All right, where's the real guy at? So it's a win-win, but it helped me kind of, jump in the deep end early and learn to swim instead of like spending years and years and years and years before I get this massive audience. I went too fast, too quick. And I was like, okay, how do I Because then I got humbled when my friends didn't show up. And I was like, I
Wait a
was funny
second.
because they were there.
It's kind of like a cheat code where it's like if you bring your own audience, that's not really an audience coming to see you. It's just like your boys hooking you up. So that first time where you don't have that, that's interesting. It's like your safety net's gone.
Yeah, it was that beginner's luck type of thing. Yeah. But it's like you need that. You need to be humbled. And the fact that I was humbled gratefully and I still wanted to do it is a sign that you're like, okay, this is a path for me.
This is for you, yeah. You want the good news or the bad news? What do you want, the good news or the bad news?
I always go good news first.
All right, the good news is when we started this shit, only 10% of people watching our YouTube videos were subscribed. And now it's up to 40%. So that's almost like a 50-50 split. That's a 30% increase. A little math for you. That's the good news.
Too much math for me, but it's good news.
You know what the bad news is? That still means 60% of you motherfuckers aren't subscribed. It still means the majority.
It's a good thing I asked first, because that would have been backwards.
That'd have been terrible, yeah. Imagine if I was like, well, the good news is...
It's good thing I fucking go good news first.
60% still just freeloading off of our videos. And guess what? It's YouTube. You're all freeloading. It's not really all... The only cost is to push the fucking button.
Just push it. Push the button.
Push it. Push it real good.
Push it real good!